John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. We're live here on the radio, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Show runs until 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm here alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, the Oracle of the Deplorables. John Frederick should be joining us here any minute. That's our co-host as well as senior contributor to GodzillaWins.com, Nate Perry. We have an absolutely loaded show this morning for you. Big time show. We're going to talk March Madness pretty much the entire first hour, joined by Dan Angel, senior contributor to GodzillaWins.com, and Darian Kelly from the Jersey Sports Blog should be joining us as well. We're going to talk some of the women's games reactions, pick the women's national championship game, then we'll do the Final Four for the men. Both of those games today had an incredible March Madness. Been very exciting as always, and we're winding down to championship weekend. Sunday, got the women's Iowa versus South Carolina. We got the Final Four tonight. NC State versus Purdue. DJ Burns versus Zach Edey. And the incomparable UConn Huskies, who have blown everybody out, playing the pesky Alabama Crimson Tide. So we'll preview those games as well. Second hour, that's 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll talk a little golf. Jay Delsing will be joining us for the Masters preview as well as the Valero Open. We'll talk a bunch of golf there, and then we'll do some Major League Baseball, some overreactions, some buyer or sellers for the first week of the season, maybe make some picks, and then in the show with some hockey talk. So we're super excited for all that is happening here on the show today. Should be really exciting. Now, might I remind you that Godzilla Wins and all of its subsidiaries are for entertainment purposes only. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming, 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. In Massachusetts, call 877-G-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York, 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 Kansas and New Hampshire, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut, 100-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit opgr.org in Connecticut. Now, right before we get to the women's Final Four reactions, and I got Dan Angel here to join us, Rest should be on pretty shortly. I want to talk to you a little bit about Royal Canal Fitness's RC Furnace. This is an incredible product that I use every day when I hit the gym. You know, most days I hit the gym. Do a little weightlifting. Here it is right here in the capsules, RC Furnace. Easy capsule here. These completely vegetarian. And what they do is they help you with your focus at the gym, with your energy, as well as burning some of that unnecessary fat. Burning fat is just the most difficult thing to do when you're working out, unless you're just in an incredible calorie deficit. There's really no product on the market like RC Furnace that can really help you shed off those extra pounds. And look, I mean, this can just be from a little extra unwanted jiggle to a bunch of weight. And it's genetic. It could be stress. It could be hormones, diet, lifestyle. It could be age. It could be all sorts of things. What we want you to try, though, is we want you to go to royalcanal.fit. Royalcanal.fit, RC Furnace, that's their product there. What you do is you take this little capsule about 30 minutes before your workout with a full glass of water. That activates the vitamins in it, as well as the folic acid, which puts a bunch of oxygen into your muscles and helps you shed off some of those unwanted pounds easily. And we got a huge promotion going on for Royal Canal right now. So go to royalcanal.fit, royalcanal.fit. You don't have to be a subscriber. All you have to do is click on the RC Furnace product and type in the promo code Godzilla Wins, just like the website, the whole promo code Godzilla Wins. And you can get 50% off your first bottle and then 3 for the price of 2 after that. And you will want to be a subscriber the minute you check this product out. Gives you incredible energy, helps you cut down on some of the fat, helps your body go into fat burning mode, and you have longer, more sustained workouts. Extremely effective product, extremely effective. I'm here with Nate Perry and Dan Angel. I'm sure, and there's Darren Kelly. So we got all 4 here today. Now, Nate asked a question in the chat, and I guess I'll address it. He didn't tell me he wasn't going to be here, although he is traveling in. I think he's in Kansas, although I could be wrong.
No, he's in Lawrence.
Yeah, that's right. To watching Joseph play baseball. So if I'm sure he has all intention of coming on, but sometimes with all the traveling he does on the weekends, I just imagine it's difficult for him to find a spot to always do this live. So we may see him at some point. He's, we love his chaotic energy. So if he comes on, he'll just be here. And we got Darian here until 8:30 Eastern time. So look, I'm glad to have all of you here today. I want to start, I think, by talking about the women's college basketball Final Four last night, some reactions there. One thing that I think is frustrating to when you host a sports show is the amount of times you have to talk about the refs. But here we are again. I think, once again, we're talking about the refs. So I'm going to start with Darian, and then we'll go to Dan here. Biggest talking point, I guess, happened at the very last play, or pretty much the very last play of the second game. UConn, Iowa. Iowa is up 70-69. UConn's got 10 seconds to bring the ball up and run a play for Paige Beckers. And Aaliyah Edwards is called against Gabby Marshall in a illegal moving screen violation. I'm just gonna I'll save my thoughts, Darian. We'll just go to you and Dan and just kind of see what how everybody feels about that play or that call at that time with the game on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at least, you got to let them play it out. I feel like you can't end on that type of a foul. And I think oftentimes when we get into big games like this, it often comes in, we leave it inside of the ref's hands when we don't have to. I think we should let the players play. I mean, I'm a former basketball player, and it's like when the heat is on and it's the heat of the moment, those games you want to just let the players decide. You don't want to step in and call a fouling charge because that could, like as it happened. I mean, that changed. I mean, the game was over after that. We don't even really get to see how UConn would respond, because I think it was a great back and forth game, a lot of momentum shifts, but you don't end the game like that is where I stand on that call.
Yeah, Dan, there's a couple ways to think about this. There's the actual illegal screen, if it was an illegal screen or not, which when you're watching it in real time was a little iffy, but if you slow it down, it may be less iffy. So there's the question of the illegal screen, Dan, but then there's also the question of, like, do you call it at this moment? It's not like the refs they let illegal screens go a lot. And UConn was called for a couple. Iowa was not called for any. So I wonder if the question is just like Darian saying, do you just let this go for this moment?
No, and I think that was a brilliant play by Gabby Marshall. And that is something that a fifth-year senior with that kind of court awareness basically created. I mean, we're talking about the officials having an impact on the game. No, this is Gabby Marshall basically making a play in a different kind of way. Like, she forced the official to make that call with her positioning, and I'm sorry, but the official has no choice in that situation with how it looked, both in real time and in slow motion. You have to make that call. Like, I don't care that it's 70-69. That's an illegal screen. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant positioning on Gabby Marshall's part. I thought she did what Iowa needed to win in that situation, and props to her.
Nate, you feel the same here? You admire Gabby Marshall for her positioning on this last play, sort of a heads up play for her.
I mean, I don't I don't know if it was like a heads up play as much as she's just like quite a bit smaller than Aaliyah Edwards, and she just kind of bounced off her like she was running into like a, like an immovable object. I don't know if it was like such like a heady play that it would be like you or me like bouncing off of a wall. You know what I mean? Like she's just so tiny, and in that moment, I'm not sure that it was like, oh, the greatest play in the world, but I mean, she was not gonna run through Aaliyah Edwards in that moment ever. And it does look like a weird play. I mean, because we were talking about it before the show, I saw two different videos of it, and in the slowed down version, it's kind of zoomed in. It looks like a very obvious foul, and when you're watching it zoomed out at game speed, like most people were that were responding online instantly, I think it really doesn't look like anything. I had to look really hard to see it. Just based on the sort of like angle and how fast everything was moving. So, I mean, yeah, like heads up play to Gabby Marshall, but I don't know if it was a bad call. Like the more I think about it, as much as it was just like, it sucks that the timing of these calls is always like this and like these huge, gigantic moments, I guess.
And I guess it's not necessary. I mean, they're in these huge, gigantic moments, but they're also all over the game. I mean, that's just how I guess it goes. I mean, I was complaining a minute ago about how I'm tired of the refs getting in the way of this stuff, but I mean, the refs are calling calls all over the place. We just, in the second quarter, we're just not freaking out about like a missed call or something. I mean, there were a couple calls. There's one I think they really missed where it was a big shot by Clark, and she kind of pushed off Nika Mule with an arm. I mean, like she really, really pushed her off. And, I mean, it was a smooth play, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man, she kind of pushed her off a lot there. As far as the illegal screen goes, I mean, I'm kind of the same mindset here of Darian, where I think that, I mean, I guess as a fan, I just hope that they don't call that so that I can at least see the shot, just for entertainment's sake. But, if you're going to call it early in the game, you got to call it late in the game. And in slow motion, it does look like she leans a little bit. It doesn't exactly look like her feet are set. She is gigantic. And Marshall does sell that a little bit, and you can see that she sells it because of her celebration. I mean, one of the things that I took away from when I was watching it in real time, I was like, man, Marshall is fired up about getting called on an illegal screen. So, but I mean, I just would have liked to see Paige Beckers, everything she's been through in the last 4 years, take the last shot for UConn of the season. And, maybe it goes in, maybe it doesn't. But it did effectively in the game. I think I'd like to talk a little bit before we kind of move on to some other stuff.
Wait, do I get to weigh in here?
If you can figure out your internet, yeah, it's very choppy. I mean, it's
Yeah, I did. I'm live in Lawrence. It's not exactly the technological IT center, the capital of the earth.
You're only half an hour from Kansas City.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just,
the internet's fine there. If you can get
Kansas.
internet where I'm at, you can get internet in Kansas.
Well, that's true, but I am in Kansas. We'll talk about the great West Virginia win yesterday, and I think we're going to Omaha. A lot of us here have coached basketball, right? Darian played, I coached, Jack coached. If you're a basketball coach, right, and that play happens against you, that call is screened against you like it was, you're going to go absolutely nuts if you're a coach, right? Because that was going on, versions of that all game. You would go ballistic. If you were on the other side, you would have. But if you were on the side of the bad call, I just sort of situation. You just can't make that call, right? It's a nonsense call. Now, let the girls play. Let the shot go off. Win the game or lose the. If you're on the other side of that ball, if you're Connecticut, you're going bat crap crazy as a coach that they would call that in this situation. All the calls are supposed to be even. That's just not reality, right? When you get down to the final minute of a game in a game like that, and you call a mamby-pamby lean-in illegal screen, that's a mamby-pamby foul. That to me is egregious. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you're going to call this foul? Now you go back a couple of seasons to Purdue. Remember, Purdue was going to win that game, and they got to 3, and it was a very questionable foul, but he did, if you saw, he did hit his hand, and he sunk through the Purdue loses to the Cavs. I got that. Yeah, I got that. But this, you got to call it illegal with the game on the line, and the offensive team has a chance to win the game. Absolutely horrible call, and should not. That's how you lose a game, on a mamby-pamby, nitpicky, illegal screen, and I play all season. That's what I get. Nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, I lean toward something Mike Krzyzewski once told his team after they lost a last-second play at Maryland. Says in the locker room, you guys are going to say we were one play away from winning this game, but what you guys don't realize is you had 20 chances to make that one play. You make one, we win. You make 10 of them, we kick Maryland's butt.
Yeah. I guess, and Darren, I'll get your thoughts on this as well here. Like, my thing is, they held Caitlin Clark to 25 points, something like that. 21 points, right? She was frustrated in this first half incredibly. She had 6 points. Nico Mule did a great job defending her. They're up by 12 at one point in the game. They look, terrific. I was kind of fighting back. I mean, Iowa plays a really frustrating defensive scheme. Bluter switches up the defensive scheme all the time, so it can really be frustrating in a game like this, because a lot of times in college basketball, it's like, okay, these guys run a trap at half court, so we can stop that. Like, let's game plan for that. Or these guys run a 2-3 zone. Bluter she'll be in a box and one, then she's in man, then she's in a 2-3 zone, then she's picking them up at half court. It's one of the reasons she's a great, defensive coach there. And she frustrates Paige Beckers as well. But I guess if I'm UConn, Darian, like, I'm looking at this whole game thinking, like, man, we really missed an opportunity here, because we executed about as well as we could, and held them to 70 points. They averaged 90. All we had to do was score 72, 71.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to when you got your enemy down, you got to kill them totally. Like, you got to wipe them out. You can't let them, especially in times like that. I mean, I think the great teams, not saying this UConn team is not a great team, I think the great teams know how to close out games and not keep it so close. I think it's all about executing all the way to the end. But hats off to UConn and for their defensive effort. But at the same time, when you have someone like Caitlin Clark like that, pinned down 12, you're up 12 double-digit leads. You have to win those games, and I just think that they just felt, it's unlike them, because I feel like they're coached to a higher standard than that. Given UConn has won 11 national titles, you would think that they know how to win games. You would think that they know how to win Final Four semis, but yeah, they have to win in that. They have to seize those opportunities.
Yeah,
but I mean that lineup was basically held together with Paige Beckers and chicken wire. I mean, the rest of the lineup. I mean, Connecticut was basically running with 6 healthy players. I mean, granted, when one of them is Paige Beckers, you have a chance to do a lot. But I mean, I think this was one of Gino Auriemma's best coaching jobs, just to get this team to the Final Four, and it really showed just how great of a player Paige Beckers is when she's fully healthy. If UConn can stay healthy next year, then they're going to be a favorite to win it all. But I think that if they had survived Iowa last night, they would have had nothing left for South Carolina.
I think that's true. I think South Carolina, and we'll talk about that preview in a minute. I think South Carolina looks pretty poised to take this whole thing. I mean, you never know with Iowa, but man, South Carolina looked really good against NC State. They've looked good this whole tournament. They're so dominant. And Dan's right there. I mean, Gino, one of the things that is fun to watch, like UConn, is just Gino's such an amazing coach, and they always have just an incredible game plan. They execute it so well. They're so well disciplined for the most part. He sets the offense a lot of times from half court, so he'll set players where he wants them, and then they'll run a certain play, which, if you've ever been in that moment, that is like really difficult to do. It's always fun to watch him. But I think Dan's right. I mean, they had 7 players, and this was also the only, like, Paige had done something in 7 games, and I don't have the stat line in front of me. It's 25 points, some amount of rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. that only LeBron James has ever done in a 7-game stretch in basketball ever. So, Dan's right. Like she willed that team to that point on 7 players, and Iowa runs a little bit deeper. They're just as tough as UConn. And they just had more players. So that 12-point lead never feels like enough, because once you get into foul trouble, it's just really difficult for UConn to sub in and out to protect their best players. All of a sudden they can't play as aggressive on defense and everything like that. So, I say hats off to Iowa. We'll talk about Iowa, South Carolina in a little bit. We'll make picks for that game. But they did what they had to win. And that's one thing that Iowa just kind of always does they have other people who can score, and Gabby Marshall can score, and Stolke can score. Falter can score. So they don't necessarily need Clark, but if they're going to beat South Carolina, they need more from Clark than 6 points in the first half. That's for sure. And I would imagine they're going to do the same thing that UConn did, which is basically shadow her the whole game. That really frustrated her. I don't know if they have anyone as good as Mule, but that really did frustrate her. Now, Dad, I want to talk a little bit about Kim Mulkey, the Washington Post story. I know we're only on once a week, and that already feels like an old story because it came out last Saturday. But before we do that, Dad, tell us a little bit about Healthy Cell and how they help you wake up fresh as daisy. Because now that you're on the computer, you look terrific. No more internet looks great. Color looks terrific. So that's got to be Healthy Cell, right?
Listen, I went to bed last night. I got in late after I got to give a pitch here for my West Virginia Mountaineers beating Kansas in Kansas 11-10, coming back a number of times, put up a 6 spot in the top of the 8th to take the lead, relinquished it in the bottom of the 8th. They come up top of the 9th down by 2 runs, and Kansas puts their closer in, a guy by the name of Hunter, throwing 97 and 99 with an 87-mile-an-hour slider. This guy's got 8 saves, 8 in a row, haven't gotten a run off him. We get he strikes the first guy out. Then we get a single, and then strikes the first guy out, and then Brody Kesser hits a bomb, ties it. Then we get another hit, and then JJ Weatherholt, that's been out since the second game of the season, who was 3 for 4 yesterday, going to go number 1 in the draft, hits a double, and Mountaineers come back and win that game 11-10. I think one of the biggest victories they've had in a very long time. So really excited about this team. Now that they got their hitters back, I'm telling you, this is a team to watch. I think they got a shot to go to Omaha. Having said that, we're excited. I got back till midnight, had to get up at 6. I only got 6 hours of sleep, but I looked so great because it was a super 6 hours. That's because I take Healthy Cell. And what I ask you to do is change your life by getting a great night's sleep. Even if you get 6 to 7 hours or 8, you're going to wake up refreshed like I do. Just go to healthycell.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla. You get 20% off this REM sleep. I'm telling you, folks, it will change your life, because you take that 15 minutes before you go to bed. Instant works, puts you to sleep, and you get in that deep sleep, and then you wake up, you jump out of bed, you're good to go. It's going to change your whole attitude, and it's so healthy for you. So go to healthycell.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla, REM sleep. Look like me when you get up fresh as a daisy.
So let's talk a little bit about the Kim Mulkey Washington Post story. I know they're out of the tournament. Dad's got some thoughts on it. We also have, some journalists on here, Dan and Darian. So I kind of want to just let you three have the floor, because you're in the media in ways that, Nate and I run Godzilla Wins, and we have a lot of fun doing it. But Nate is a career bartender and writer, and I'm a teacher. So some of the journalistic stuff, while we have thoughts on it, I'd rather get some thoughts from the journalists. So, Dad, why don't you start? Because I know you have some thoughts on this. Then we'll go to Darian, because he's got to get out of here in about 5 or 6 minutes, and then Dan, and we'll just talk a little bit. I mean, just to set it up, I'm sure a lot of people know, but I don't want to talk about the LA Times op-ed. That was commentary. It's not it's not journalism. It's not an opinion piece. We're talking about the Washington Post piece, which is journalism, and will painted an interesting picture of Kim Mulkey through the years. Whatever your thoughts are on this, Dad, go for it.
Yeah, screw the LA Times is a total rag. Not the same since it was in the early day. Total left-wing rag, piece of crap. Let's get to this Kim Mulkey story. Here's my position on it. What's the point? What was the point of this story? What, let's like dig in her past and try to find out what her relationship was with her father? She wrote a book. Go read that. She wouldn't contribute to the story. She wouldn't go on the record. She wouldn't anything to do with it. So what was the point of this story? Because I think I'm going to write an interesting story about Kim Mulkey. She's a colorful figure. Okay, Kim, I'd like to interview you, do a story. No, I don't want anything to do with it. Okay, story's over. Next. I mean, are you digging into some, what are you digging into? Oh, she made this person cry. Oh, she was a bailer, and she brought somebody in her office and told her, holding hands with another woman on campus in a Baptist college. Probably not a good look. I mean, she hasn't talked to her father in 37 years. Oh, she hasn't talked to her sister. Oh, she's had so many marriages. Oh, this is about her son. I mean, it was a pointless hit. They wanted a hit piece on Kim Mulkey because she is a successful, driven white woman. That's why they did this, and they can't stand her. So they do this hit piece on her, which is like garbage. So it was a pointless story. If you can't get the central figure to interview with you, what is the point of this story? Go on to something else. They tried to do a hit piece. They couldn't do it. It failed. It blew up in their face, and it was garbage.
Okay, so I want to talk to Darian and Dan about this because I think that there's some flawed logic in my dad's reasoning here. But I'll let you guys give your thoughts. You can respond to him, or you can just talk about the piece in general if you want. Darian.
Yeah, I just think I don't think the things that took place or that was written as far as like Kim Mulkey, I mean, I don't think they painted her in a great light at all. I think the timing of the article was a bit odd, but I think that this was kind of brewing for some time, just given, I guess, the success and the attention around LSU. I felt like, they painted this sort of, picture of themselves as like, can't be touched or they're untouchable and whatnot. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I think the timing of the article, was just kind of like, where are we going with this? Or is this just to try to, I was trying to figure out what was like, what did the writer seek to generate, from the audience? Like, what was that impression? And so I couldn't really understand it, but I knew it was going to be that level of a piece when she came out and started talking about it days before it had launched. I was like, wow, this must, this must be one of those, I guess, articles that are, it's going to send some shockwaves, but at the same time with her, like for many years, not wanting to answer any questions and whatnot, I knew it kind of was going to be a one-sided type of article. And I think that's what it was. You're just getting one side of the story, not necessarily hers. And I think that if you were to get her side of the story, then it will be a more complete article because then we'd be able to make our decision. But when it's so biased, it's hard to decide or say like, okay, where do I lean on these things? I'm not saying that they were right, but it's two sides. It's multiple sides to every story.
We'll get to Dan in a minute, Darren. I know you have to go here at 8:30. So tell us before you go in. Darian does a lot of work for us at GodzillaWins.com, runs our social media, also writes an article about every week on sort of the business of sports and different things like that. But Darian, just tell our listeners where they can find you before you have to go here.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at DKSports410. Also on Instagram, and follow the Jersey Sports Network on Instagram as well as YouTube as well. Jersey Sports.
All right, thanks, Darren. We love having you on, and hopefully we can get you on for some other segments. I know you're a big Orioles guy, big baseball guy, so we definitely want to have you in the mix for some of these baseball segments, so that it's not just Dad telling us why the 2-6 Astros are good. So maybe we'll have you on some of those segments as well. Now, Dan, I saw you shaking your head when Dad said, "Okay, if you can't get the subject of the piece to respond, then you don't have a story." I think we're probably in agreement if you're shaking your head for those reasons. I'll let you kind of respond to that and just generally talk about how you view that Washington Post piece in general, or just journalism in general, because that's your.
I thought it was a good, well-researched piece, and it wasn't what Kim Mulkey made it out to be. Like the way that she acted, like all she did was ensure that a lot more people read it than would have read it otherwise, because it wasn't a hit piece. It was a well-researched piece of journalism that gave a good insight into who who she is, what has shaped her into this determined, driven competitor. And the overall point of it was, okay, is it worth all that she's done? Like, yeah, she really wins, but is it worth it when you don't really build those relationships with your players, and you don't
with anyone?
Yeah, like your players don't want to come back for a 20-year reunion. You don't really have those connections with anybody. I mean, like, did it really say anything about Kim Mulkey that we didn't already kind of know? Not really. But was it unfair? Was it a hit piece? Absolutely not. And if Kim Mulkey had just kept her mouth shut, as opposed to trying to make an enemy and trying to give her team something to rally around, I think that's what that was Kim Mulkey trying to give her team quote unquote bulletin board material, and the Post didn't do that. And I think if she had just stayed away from that subject entirely, it wouldn't have been controversial. I mean, it wouldn't have been great for her, but it would have been, okay, this is who she is. Yeah, it jives a lot with what we've seen. Okay, on to the next thing. And I mean, I do totally disagree that if the source won't talk to you, then you have no story, because there have been plenty of times where people haven't talked, and you still get a story, or in some cases even a book. Like Ian O'Connor wrote a book on Mike Krzyzewski's entire career, and Krzyzewski doesn't talk to him even once in the book. Like, he does not use Krzyzewski as a primary source. Now, Krzyzewski told him that, no, I don't want to talk about this, but anyone in my life who you want to contact, have at it. I'm not going to stand in your way of this book. But yeah, he doesn't even once speak. Dean Smith was notable for wanting to stay out of the spotlight. Anytime anyone tried to do a profile on him, he would always say, write about my players, write about my players. And then one time he finally agreed, because the reporter had told him, look, my editors told me, if he doesn't cooperate, write the story without him, because we've written about your players. We've written basically everything there is to know about your players. We need to get a story about you at some point, because, like it or not, you're a public figure. People care about you. And people care about Kim Mulkey, especially during March. I mean, that's when this story had to run, because, I mean, women's basketball is having a moment right now. Unfortunately, there is no guarantee that that moment is going to continue past March. So this is when the story was most timely. The Washington Post did a fine job of researching it. I think it was blown out of proportion. I saw no problem with what the Post did. What the LA Times did was unacceptable. Totally unfair, totally ridiculous, but I have no problem at all with what the Washington Post did.
Yeah, and that's why I don't want to dignify the Times with really much airtime, because that's not responsible journalism what they did.
Not at all.
And I don't, I think that the LA Times puts out responsible journalism all the time. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. That wasn't responsible. But to the Washington Post piece, I mean, like, what I don't understand is like a couple things, and then Nate, we'll get to you too, because I think I want your perspective on just kind of what it's like maybe living in Texas and working at Baylor, which I think is something in the story that maybe is underpinning it a little bit. But from my perspective, it's basically like, from a journalist perspective, and I'm not a journalist, but you absolutely have a responsibility to run pieces when someone is not being cooperative. Like, I couldn't imagine Woodward and Bernstein being like, wow, Nixon he's not really talking to us or giving us enough. I guess we should kill it. No. You had your time. This is my time. You don't get to interrupt because you disagree. That's not how this works. You can have a rebuttal. When I give it to you, I'm going to speak. So that's number one. Number two, not every piece about people is a hit piece. That is like a ridiculous thing that we have come to decide, like, just in general, without like reading the whole piece. That piece took a long time to read. Most people in today don't sit down and read an entire piece for lots of reasons, because our phone is addictive and we like these 6-second dopamine hits. Just because something like an article is about someone doesn't make it a hit piece. That piece was responsible journalism. They reached out to tons of people and they ran quotes about people who said Kim Mulkey was great. I loved playing for her at Baylor. She never made me feel uncomfortable. She never made me feel like an outcast. And then they ran quotes from people who said, it was tough, man. It's weird that she doesn't have a relationship with us after we're done. I mean, these are high school to college athletes. They're students. You can't on one hand say we love student athletics, we want these coaches to be a part of their life, and then say, oh, win baby win, doesn't matter what happens afterwards. Like, college coaches are there to be educators in some ways. They talk about that all the time in ways that professional coaches don't. And if you're going to talk about it that way, if you're going to be in college athletics, you have to have some relationship with your players. You shouldn't just cut them off. I mean, that's just personally as an educator, the way I feel. But, you know, to me, I think the piece was a really interesting insight into Mulkey and all the things that she has, all her personality that kind of makes her who she is and gives her an opportunity to be so successful. So, you know, to me, this is it was an interesting piece, and I don't care that she didn't respond. And I think Dan is right. She fanned the flames by just going up there and whining about this piece on national television. I don't think maybe the four of us would have read it, but Dan's right. Like, this would not have been as big a piece. So she did the Washington Post a favor. And, you know, Dad, and we're going to get to Nate, and then we'll go back to Dad, but you of all people understand how journalists works, and you would never go up in front of cameras if a piece ran about you and start whining about how this was ridiculous. You would just be like, hey, good article. You know, he reached out to me. I didn't have time to respond, but I read the article. I mean, that's how you've responded to pieces been written about you for years. So, you know, to defend Mulkey in this position, like, she was being ridiculous. And I think Dan's right. Bulletin board material, rah, let's beat Iowa. Everybody hates us. Like, that's good motivation. But, you know, overall, I think the piece is kind of like a non-story. It was just kind of an interesting piece. But I want to get to Nate's thoughts on it. Then we'll go back to Dad. Then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it, and we touched on it briefly because, you know, obviously you and me have talked about it throughout the week. My big takeaway from a lot of it, just sort of being, you know, familiar with sort of, you know, sports culture and particularly, you know, Texas sports culture and Texas sort of culturally in general, was a lot of this just felt like more problems for Baylor. Like, I couldn't read this story without thinking that Mulkey was under tremendous amount of pressure from Baylor to moderate or modify her players' appearance, sort of what they were doing in public. It felt bigger than Kim Mulkey. When I was reading the story, it felt like there was probably a lot of pressure from boosters. It felt like there was probably a lot of pressure from, you know, the Baptist administration of Baylor. So I came away from this piece wondering why the journalists maybe didn't focus a little bit more on that. And obviously that's not, you know, the sort of crux of this. This is another indictment of Baylor's athletic department, of which there have been myriad problems from that time period that Mulkey was there, not just, you know, with her basketball program, but, you know, more notably with Art Briles and the football program. So, I mean, I think that some of this just speaks how tricky it is, because most of these kind of come from most of these quotes and most of these players that are being interviewed came from that extremely tumultuous time at Baylor. And I'm not sure enough sort of like context was given for that particular time period. And I'm not sure that anyone reading it just to get like an idea of Mulkey would necessarily know the context. You know, I don't think that it's so obvious that the journalist could just leave it out. Was sort of without explaining it. So that was like my sort of big takeaway. Like, do I think Mulkey's a tough personality? Yeah. Do I think that she probably said a lot of things to these women that, you know, made them feel uncomfortable about themselves, you know, appearance wise, made them feel uncomfortable about their sexuality, you know, what they're doing in public with their significant others? Absolutely, I do. But I think that it's a little bit deeper than just like Mulkey being, you know, some sort of rampaging homophobe, which is like kind of how all the secondary responses treated this article.
Even though, and I will say this just to Dan's point, you know, you really have to do some inference or you have to make some assumptions to come away with that from the piece.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like you get that reaction on Twitter where it's like, you know, someone sort of condensing this whole article into, you know, 15 or 20 words, 25 words. And it's more nuanced than that. Do I think that, you know, there's some evidence that she's, you know, problematic in that way? Yeah. Is there a lot of context missing from this piece? Probably.
Dad, I'm gonna give you the last word on this, and then we'll move on to just doing some picks for these games.
I agree with Dan 100% on her response. I mean, you brought it up. I've had at least 100 hit pieces on me, and I don't want to bring politics into this, but the 100 I've had is going to pale in comparison to the 100 I'm going to get between now and November. So I get them I get them, and some of them are just nasty. I mean, there's nasty stuff. And the ones that don't call me are the worst. I mean, they'll just publish the thing and not even bother to pick up the phone. And then you just see it. Somebody texts it to you and it's in, the Daily Rag this or the Daily whatever those things are, Salon or something. But, I respond to them all on publicly, whether it be TV, an interview or something else. And it's the same thing. Hey, if the piece is accurate, okay, fine, move on. I've never go after the piece because all it does is bring more attention to it, right? And if the stuff is accurate, I get hit pieces on me. If they quote me accurately, I actually call the hit piece guy up or email him and say, thanks for getting my quote right. That's all. I mean, I don't care what you say about me. I've got enough enemies to fill up bar 10 times over. So it doesn't matter. But I think bringing attention to it, she was trying to do a preemptive strike, but she just did more damage to it. But I just didn't think look, if we went back to what Bear Bryant, could you imagine the pieces written on her? As far as Baylor is concerned, I mean, it's a conservative Baptist college. What do you expect? I mean, if you go there, that's what the culture is, right? Don't go there if you don't want to go there. I couldn't figure this whole thing out. And look, guys, this is going to drive you nuts, and we can go on to something else. I got to ask the question. If Kim Mulkey was not a Trump conservative, if she was a super liberal, would that piece have gotten written? I bet you $10,000
Yes.
They never would have touched. They never would have touched. They went after
it would
this
have been,
woman.
It would have been
But
written.
she is a Trump conservative. That's why they went after her, and that's why they were relentless in trying to get out this piece.
No, and that's not mentioned in the piece at all.
I don't agree with that at all, John. I don't agree with that at all. The reason is because Kim Mulkey has kind of made herself a controversial figure with how she just completely abandoned her own player. Like, there wasn't any show of anything for Brittany Griner. I mean, you can have your own feelings about Brittany Griner and Russia all you want. I'm not talking about that. But for Kim Mulkey to not even say, yeah, we hope that Brittany gets home safely as soon as possible, and she's in my thoughts, because she was one of mine, and I hate to see that for her. I mean, she couldn't even manage that. Like, that's as non-controversial as you can get. And she made herself a controversial figure by abandoning Brittany Griner, by the antics that she has on the sidelines. I mean, last year's championship game, I felt like I needed a shower after that game because it was just so gross how Kim Mulkey was able to basically, she was basically a sixth player for LSU with how much time she spent on the court. I mean, she should have logged box score minutes, and the refs just let her do it. So I do not think this had anything to do with her political stances or anything about that. I think it matters because she is an excellent coach. Have to give her that. I mean, she has the national championships to prove it, but she's also a controversial coach, and she does not do the things that a coach needs to do off the floor to build those relationships and cultivate a quote unquote family with her team. And I think that was what made this piece newsworthy, not what she does at the ballot box.
Yeah, well said, Dan. I mean, one of the problems, and you brought this up, Dad, so I'm going to finish it and then we're going to move on. One of the issues that a lot of Trump conservatives and a lot of liberals who whatever, I don't know what you call them, progressives, have is that they think everything is about them. Not everything is about being a Trump conservative. Kim Mulkey's not being persecuted like she's in like a Puritan in England. That's not what's happening here. She's not being persecuted for her beliefs. That's not what's happening. She does not take the time to build relationships with players in the same way that Gino Auriemma or Dawn Staley does, and she's just as successful as them. If you listen to former players talk with or about Gino Auriemma, it is as though he played one of the most important roles in their young life. These are 18 to 22-year-old students. If you watch people who played for Dawn Staley talk about Dawn Staley, or talk with Dawn Staley, if you watched Aaliyah Boston do it last night, they respect Dawn Staley as a figure in their life. Former players don't talk that way about Kim Mulkey. Now, Kim Mulkey might have a different personality. She might, she might have a whatever it takes to win type of mentality. That's fine. But like Gino Auriemma has won way more than Kim Mulkey has, and Pat Summitt won way more than Kim Mulkey, at least championships. More than, well, I don't know about championships with Mulkey now, but I'd have to go back and look. But built an incredible.
I think she's got 7. So yeah, I think that's more than Mulkey.
So yeah.
And Jeff, you brought up an excellent point there about Dawn Staley. I mean, last night against NC State, her former point guard, someone who transferred away from South Carolina and went to NC State and is now playing on the other team, Rivers, is still talking about how much she loves and respects Staley and how much how they text each other at big moments. She's now playing for a completely different school, and Staley is still a huge part of her life. That's what great coaches do. And that's something that Kim Mulkey is lacking.
And that's what it means to be an educator on a university, and that's what they are. The good ones are not just coaches; they're educators. I think Kim Mulkey would be an awesome WNBA coach. She takes
let Kim Mulkey coach the men. You don't have to build relationships in the men's game now.
Yeah, because they leave after a year. That's another thing.
Players stay for 3-4 years now. I mean, now even more so with NIL money and with the WNBA not offering huge salaries. But in the men's game, it's 1 year and gone. So let Kim Mulkey go coach a men's team.
So I'm going to talk about Beard Vet, and then we have to do the final 4 picks, which is coming up. But look, I mean, that's an important conversation, I think, for us to have. And we're not on the radio. We're only on the radio once a week. And that was a huge story. And we cover a lot of women's basketball here proudly. I mean, I love that game. I follow it. And I think it's a really important game and something that I love to talk about. So I'm glad we spent the time talking about it, but we got to talk a little bit about some of these men's Final Four picks, which everybody is interested in. But before we do that, we'll talk a little bit about Beard Vet. I just ran out of Beard Vet coffee in my cup here. Going to get some more in just a minute. I got some more on the pot there. Beard Vet has the best coffee on the market, hands down. Cannot make that up. Beardvet.com. You go to beardvet.com. You put in the promo code Godzilla. Just like the website Godzilla Wins, but just that promo code Godzilla, that gets you 10% off, and you can get 10% off on any of their products. We're talking K-Cups, fine ground, whole bean, 10% off. Logistically, they get your coffee to you quick and easy. Great process, terrific company. So go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Put in the promo code Godzilla, 10% off all of your coffee needs. Okay, 12 minutes, folks, to talk about the men's, and we can also throw in a pick for the women's championship game, but let's do the men's a little bit here first. So, Dan, we'll start with you, and I think let's start with the UConn game, UConn-Alabama. That's the one that the spread is a little bit higher than the other one, mostly because nobody, like we talked about last week, nobody knows how to handicap UConn because they keep covering these massive spreads. This is the men's we're talking about. They're so good. Minus 11.5, and again, over under 160.5. Alabama, we know, can score. Dan, we'll start with you. Pick for the Final Four here.
I mean, I got to play the over because we know that both of these teams can score. I mean, Connecticut has the number 1 most efficient offense in the nation, and the Huskies do pretty much everything well on both sides of the ball. Alabama is, of course, going to force the tempo. They're going to get their points, but so is Connecticut. So I think this is going to be a game where UConn might end up in the 100s. And I don't think I want to touch the spread. I think it's it might be a little bit inflated, but Connecticut has just been bombing teams so well that I just don't want to touch that spread.
Yeah, John, do you have any thoughts to preview this game? Who do you like in UConn, Alabama?
I mean, it doesn't matter how many points favorite
the books make UConn. They keep winning and covering. They cover everything, and the games are not even close. If I go back to the beginning of this tournament, and I could just bet the Huskies, like all my bets on every game on DraftKings, right? I would not only would I be way up, but like I would have zero stress in my life because they win every game by 30 points. I mean, until somebody can show me that they can play with this team at this level, I mean, I'm going to lay the 12. I think it's 11 and a half now. And I think it was Nate. It was Nate or Dan, and you guys made a great point last week when they were the big favorite or whoever they were playing, and I bet the underdog in that game. And you said that the Vegas is teasing and tempting you to bet the underdog and take the wood. It was like 8.5 or something, and I think you're exactly correct. Until somebody can beat this team or stay with him, I'm going to lay the 12.
I just got back on. Is Nate? Nate, did you make your pick?
I haven't made my pick yet. No,
Okay,
we did Dan and John. I think that I agree with kind of where everyone's going with this. I mean, UConn's just been so dominant. I mean, at some point, you know, the shots aren't going to fall for Alabama. They're just too one-dimensional. I still think they're too one-dimensional to win the whole thing. The defense just isn't good, and I think that UConn will shred them up. After watching that just horrifying 30-0 run that they went on against Illinois in the second half, or kind of late first half, you know, most of the second half in the Elite Eight game, I sort of, you know, have been looking to get a little bit more creative with how I bet this game, and I sort of like UConn -5.5 just in the second half, just because they seem to just wear teams out, and they've worn teams out this whole tournament. So that's sort of the sharpest angle I've been finding is I think that UConn probably wins the second half. It's just a matter of Alabama has enough juice to sort of hang with them in the first half.
That's a really smart bet.
That's that's good, Nate. I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, there you go. Nate, coming
It
in
can
hot
be
here.
taught.
Coming hot, baby.
Nate, well done. You've gotten John to consider an alternate type of bet. He can.
I know. He's so funny because one week he'll be like, "You millennials are the stupidest people in the world, throwing your money away on these bets I don't understand." And then when he likes one, he's like, "That's the smartest thing I've heard all week." So, it's just all vibes with him. I call this sports betting nihilism. I just keep taking UConn until they stop. Like I'm hoping they won't cover. Like I'm gonna take the -11.5 and just I don't even want to win. I on principle. I just can't take Alabama because UConn won't stop covering these massive spreads. So I'm just staring into the void like Nietzsche and just hammering UConn, hoping to feel something.
I'm hoping Alabama wins the game because I've got to try and beat Amy in this bracket pool.
Yeah, that's right. You and Amy are right there in the bracket pool. I still can't believe none of us had UConn except Amy. We're all way too clever. Sometimes you just gotta do the obvious thing, I think. And they've been so good. So we'll see. I'm taking UConn -11.5 until they stop covering the spread. Now, Purdue and NC State. I don't have the spread up, but I know it's like 5.5 or something.
9.5.
9.5.
9.5. Oh wow!
Yeah, I've got that up already on Godzilla Wins.
That's crazy. So okay, Purdue, NC State 9.5. I mean, yeah, NC State 11 seed, but they got DJ Burns. Purdue looks just as good as UConn. We'll start with Dan. That was his pick to win it all here. Zaki looks great. We talked about the officiating last week. We won't talk about it this week. It is annoying. I mean, I will say that, but whatever. So do you, and Dan has his pick up on Godzilla Wins. You can go there to read the full pick. Who do you like in this game, NC State, Purdue, Dan?
Boiler up. I mean, DJ Burns has played well, but Purdue has Zach Edey. And Zach Edey is the ultimate cheat code for college basketball. And I think he does not get enough credit for his passing skills. I mean, one of the reasons that Purdue is so much tougher to handle this year is Edey can dish it out when needed, and Purdue has so many confident shooters. And I think Lance Jones was really a key to that Tennessee win with how he took Dalton Knecht out of the game after that hot start. If DJ Horn gets going for State, Painter's going to put Jones on him, and that's going to be the end of that. So I think Purdue has the depth to handle what State brings to the table. I just think it ends up overwhelming the Wolfpack. So the Cinderella run ends here. We get the UConn Purdue championship game we deserve.
Dad, I mean, you've been on Purdue as well, so I gotta think you're not afraid to lay the spread.
I'd lay 15. Look, it's like midnight for NC State, right? They turn into a pumpkin, and the glass slippers turn into rags on their feet. I mean, now they're up against a really solid basketball team that plays in a Big Ten. Okay, sorry ACC, you guys suck. The bottom line of this thing is Purdue UConn. I think is going to be the matchup, and that is a game. I'm telling you, everybody, where whatever you do on Monday night, you take it off your schedule. Like I got some event Monday night, I've already canceled it. This is going to be one of the best games ever. Now, obviously, both teams have to win, but Purdue they've been knocking on the door, banging on the door. This time, I think they kick it in, and I think the NC State here is looking at a blowout. I tell you the other thing, this is a hungry team. You watch Purdue play. This is not like some of the older Purdue teams. This is a hungry team, and I know Matt Painter's got all the criticism on it, but I love Purdue in this game, and I think that UConn-Purdue matchup, if we get there, is going to be epic.
Nate?
I like the over here, I think. I've seen a lot of people sort of taking the under. I like the over. Ken Palm has it, at 151 for the total. It's at 146.5 right now. So I think there's some value just based on Ken Palm's numbers alone. But I also just think that, these teams are like Purdue's going to score against NC State. Like DJ Burns is as great as he's been offensively at sort of getting to his spots and using his toolbox of moves to sort of get buckets. Like he's still slow laterally. He's still a defensive liability for them. He just doesn't move well enough, sort of quickly enough to be able to cover some of those things. And I think Edey's going to be able to get points on him. Like I think that's just going to happen. They're going to get Edey the ball a ton. If they get DJ Burns sort of out of position, he's not fast enough to recover. So I think that Edey will score. On the other side, I think that, the focus on Burns for Purdue will probably open up some three-point shooting for NC State. DJ Horn, will probably have some shots that he's going to be able to get because of this focus on Purdue, or because of this focus on DJ Burns, like it's been the whole tournament, really, for their whole, sort of run. A lot of this hinges on DJ Horn, even though he's not getting as much, sort of public credit as Burns. So I just like the over here. I just keep looking at it. It just feels too low for two teams that should be able to score. And NC State's still got some real defensive problems. So yeah, I'm going over.
I like NC State. Nate said something earlier in the month about March Madness being just basically vibes, and there's no greater vibes than NC State right now. So I'm just going to take the 9.5 just because I don't know. Maybe they don't win the game, but they certainly are a pesky out. The biggest problem is if Zach Edey gets Burns in foul trouble, I don't know what you do. Like, I don't know if you just pray that he doesn't foul out.
Well, I think you try and throw Mo Diarra on Edey for as long as you can and try and get away from him. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think there's going to be some foul issues tonight. Edey's called a certain way. That's just undeniable. Let's do no narrative here, but right before the top of the hour, let's do the women's championship on Sunday. South Carolina is a 6.5-point favorite against Iowa. We'll just run around, tell us your pick. Start with Dan.
I got to go with South Carolina here. I mean, the Gamecocks look so good against NC State. They really didn't look that great in the regionals, but they picked it up, and they're a much deeper team. So I got to ride with South Carolina to complete the perfect season.
Dad?
Iowa plus 6.5. I'm going to bet on the best women's college ball player in the history of the game winning the championship.
Nate?
I think it's South Carolina. I think we saw the blueprint on how to slow Caitlin Clark down, and I think that South Carolina can execute that better than UConn.
Iowa plus 6.5, baby. They did it last year. They beat them by a bunch, and I think that spread's going to go down because everybody loves Iowa. So take it now if you like Iowa. Don't wait until it gets to 4. Coming up, doing a little golf, doing a little baseball. Going to be joined by Jay Delsing to talk a little golf, and we'll do some baseball. Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
And welcome back. You're listening to the Saturday Picks Show. Godzilla Wins here. We're joined by Jay Delsing, former PGA Tour pro, writing for GodzillaWins.com. Going to be joining us, hopefully, a lot in the future to talk some golf. So we're happy to have him. Jay, how you doing?
I'm doing great, boys. How about you?
We're doing terrific. We got a lot of sports to talk about in this last hour. Did a bunch of the basketball earlier, so that'll be a lot of fun. We'll get to golf in a minute, Dad, but before we do that, I want to tell everyone about mypillow.com. Dad, tell us a little bit about how people can take advantage, I guess, of the greatest promo code in the history of the world.
Fun is the promo code. Let's go to mypillow.com, promo code fun. Mypillow.com, promo code fun. Mike Lindell's got a great number of specials right now, all for $25. Towels, $25. Dish towels, $25. Slide-on sandals, $25. It goes on from there. Right now, until the end of April, right now, I'm sorry, I got to change that. Until April 15th, tax day, over $75, free shipping. Mike Lindell's got inventory. It's got to go. MyPillow's got the best price. Plus, don't forget the MyPillow. They got the bed sheets, the Prescal bed sheets. When I go to bed at night, here's what I got. I take I get the MyPillow towels. Then I go to bed. I'm on the MyPillow mattress with the MyPillow mattress topper, with the MyPillow down comforter, with the Sammy MyPillow bed because he doesn't sleep on it. He sleeps with us. It drives us bananas. I got all that going. Plus, right now I got my MyPillow slippers on as we speak. I got my MyPillow socks on. Great stuff, guys, at a great price. Go to mypillow.com. Do it now. You're going to find something there. Great for your family. Great for what you need. Promo code FUN, and you're good to go.
Who doesn't like fun? Promo code FUN. They're up to 80% off on some of those products. We are, as I said, joined by Jay Delsing, part of Golf with Jay Delsing, which you can find on 101.1 ESPN Sports Radio at, I believe, it's 8 to 10 Eastern time on Sundays, right, Jay?
It'll be 9 to 11 on Eastern time. Yeah, we're Central time, 8 to 10. Yes.
That's right.
What market is that, Jay?
St. Louis.
St. Louis. So you're 101 FM St. Louis. Is that live or do you?
No, we're taped.
We're taped.
Taped out. Yeah.
Got it.
And you can also find all of the Golf with Jay Delsing episodes on, I would imagine, Jay, Spotify, and all the places you can find your podcast. You can go to jdelsinggolf.com.
We have them all archived there. Yeah, we've had some great guests: Jack Nicklaus, Barbara Nicklaus, Wayne Gretzky. We've had Jim Nance, some really fun people on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. The Wayne Gretzky one is one that I was able to listen to this week and really enjoyed. So check out Jay's show. It's a lot of fun. Now, Jay, we're going to be talking golf here. We'll do the Valero. We'll really focus on you and Nate. Now, Dan, you can jump in if you want to. Don't know how much golf you follow, but we'll start with the Valero. Then we'll do a little Masters preview. Everybody excited about the Masters next week. Greatest event in sports. One of them anyway, definitely in the spring. But for the Valero, we got Akshay Bhatia up by like 1 million strokes. Looks amazing. So just, I guess, Jay, your thoughts on Akshay. I think if you've been following golf, everybody has been waiting for him to run away with the tournament at some point. He's so good. When he heats up, he can really be good.
Yeah, he's a young player and took a different path, Jack. So he didn't go to college. He decided he was the number one amateur in the world and decided, hell, I'm going to just turn pro. His parents were, kind of on, not necessarily on the fence there, but really just tried to support him. And he just turned pro and started playing. And if you watched his progress, it was really interesting because he would go try to Monday on the Corn Ferry. And you watch him, all of a sudden his name would pop up here or there. And then all of a sudden he wins a Corn Ferry event. And then he gets his PGA Tour card. So his progression has been really fun to watch, you guys, because he's just been getting better and better and better. And the kid doesn't weigh 150 pounds soaking wet. I mean, he's a tall guy. He's a left-hander. And when you listen to him, he's really impressive, He's really impressive. So I love the kid. I'm trying to get him on the show. I'm a fan from a distance, and these kids come up these days, you guys, and they're so good. They're so ready to play. I mean, you look at a guy like Cameron Young, who's been on tour for, I think, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. He's already got 7 second place finishes, So there's a process to going through all that. Some guys come out and win right away, but there's a process you kind of have to stumble and you have to go through some of the growing pains to figure out how to win. And Batia's doing it. I mean, now anything can happen. We're only halfway home. Good people.
He looks good right now. Jay, if you ever have him on the show, Nate and I used to run a golf podcast. And one of the things that we used to delight in doing was making up strokes gained statistics. And we are convinced that Bhatia is the king of strokes gained resort courses. So if you just did a strokes gained for all the resort courses, Bhatia would be up there at number one, because anytime you get him in the Caribbean or somewhere where, you guys a resort, he's just, Mexico. He's always crushing it. In Valero, maybe not a resort, I wouldn't say San Antonio is a resort necessarily, but the way that Norman designed this course many years ago, cutting it out with the canyons and stuff, it definitely has that feel to it. And then, of course, what we're talking about with those resort courses is wind, which can be a major factor here. And Bhatia plays really well. Nate, what do you think about Bhatia right now? I mean, I know, Nate, you're a golf betting degenerate. I'm okay saying that on the radio. You love to do it, but you took this week off. Bhatia is one of those guys who you love to play, and now he's leading and you didn't bet him, so sucks for you.
Yeah, I texted you about that earlier. I was like, God, this is a week that I would have taken him, because I've been thinking about this, and we were talking about that. We were always joking about how Bhatia was strongest, when you got him off the sort of continental United States. He's great in Hawaii, he's great in Mexico, he's great in
Puerto Rico.
The Bahamas. And then he won in Truckee, and I watched that win here because I'm a Reno local, obviously, so I was up in Truckee to watch him win there. And he's been great, but I think that it's really he's just really good in the wind. I think that if it's just hot and windy, Akshay is going to be fine. I think that's really what we're learning. It has nothing to do with, the fairways being a little bit wider. It has more to do with he's just really good at controlling the ball in the wind. And this week, that's what he's done. I mean, he's second in strokes gained approach so far in the tournament through 2 rounds. He's second in around the green. He's not really putted very well, and he's still winning by 5 shots, which is just crazy. He's 31st in the field in strokes gained putting, and he's up by 5. So, is there a chance that he could get much worse with the putter over the weekend? Oh, 100%. That would not be weird for him to start missing some putts, because 31st in this field is still a pretty good putting week for Akshay. That's a club he struggles with, is the putter. But I mean, the ball striking has just been so strong. I don't see how you could bet against him this week. That's for sure. Not with a 5-stroke lead and as well as he's hitting it. I mean, this isn't a smoke and mirrors performance for sure.
I think you're right, Nate. I think it's interesting, this whole strokes gain and this whole creation of our metrics now that we have on the PGA Tour. It's really interesting where last week, Scotty Scheffler finishes second, misses a 5-footer on the last hole. And if you look at his strokes gained and his stats, he's absolutely beating the hell out of everybody in everything except putting. He winds up losing almost a full stroke to the field in strokes gained putting and finishes 99th in the field in putting, and only 83 guys made the cut boys. So 13 guys that missed the cut putted better than Scotty Scheffler, who winds up running second. It's crazy.
Jay, this question just kind of occurred to me, so I'll ask it, and then we can move on to the Masters. As someone who played on tour and has played a lot of golf in his life, more than all five of us, I'm sure. If strokes gained and all this metrics, if this had sort of come to fruition, or when you were playing, would you have been the kind of player who would have been like, oh, I want all the metrics, give me all the statistics, the swing analysis, or would you just be like, look, I'm 6'5", I go out there, I hit the ball, and I try to get in the hole, get away from me with this strokes gained putting and approach, like I'm just playing golf?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when I played, nobody cared nearly as much. You know what I mean? They just we just didn't have stuff. Tiger brought all of this to the table. I mean, we kind of knew where our statistics that we kept back in the day were so poor that I kept my own. And I'm not a stats guy, but I'm like, I've got to know a couple of things, like what do I do from the fairway? We didn't have, we basically just had, I knew I was lousy hitting fairways. I hit about half my fairways, but what I did was the exact opposite of what the kids do now. They don't care about hitting the fairways. They just smash it as far as they can and figure it out as they go. We didn't have the grooves in our irons like they have today. So when you hit it in the rough, man, I would hit flyers every time. People behind the green were wearing helmets when I played. My ball was coming over the green and coming in hot. And so it's a great question, Jack. I've never really thought of it. It's one of those things for me. It's like eventually, after I've run my head into the wall so many times, I'll go ahead. All right, give them to me, and tell me what I can do better. Because I'm one of those guys that I'm a big picture guy, and the little details elude me easily.
I think probably a lot of the best golfers in the world are big picture guys. I would love to ask Scotty the same question. Like, we always talk about how much he sucks at putting. Obviously, he knows that. Like, he doesn't need strokes gained putting to know that he can't make a putt anymore. But I wonder if some of those guys...
He feels it deeply when he goes to bed at night, when he eats breakfast,
right,
when he's warming up. He knows that the putter's a problem.
Guys, it's like wearing an itchy sweater. It's there the entire time. You can't outrun it. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh yeah, I'm not putting well. I'm not, it's, Nate, you said it perfectly. When you're eating, when you go to bed, you're brushing your teeth. You're like, dang, man.
Yeah, you're just like anxious about it. You're like, if I don't hit the ball this good, like it's a real problem.
Guys, it's interesting. His metrics from the hitting are close to Tiger in the early 2000s. It's off the charts. I never, ever thought we'd see anybody come close to that. And what it tells you is that, excuse me, Scheffler's got a compete level that's off the charts, because if it is so hard to keep your attitude halfway decent when you're putting lousy. It works its way through the game so quickly. And Scheff is he's doing a great job. Another thing that's interesting about Scheffler, guys, is that when I watch golf, and I am a nerd, I read it, I love it. I try to figure out, like, I watch this guy swing and try to figure out, do I know where the ball's going? And for the most part, I do, until I see Scheffler and his trail leg goes sliding out. His other thing goes over here. His hands, and I'm like, oh man, that's going to be, that could be anywhere. And then boom, right next to the flag. I'm like, I can't figure out his swing and game. So powerful too, boys.
I followed him a lot when I went to the FedEx Cup this year in Memphis, and it was like the grouping for the second day was Rory, Scotty, and John Rahm. So it was everybody was following it, and I did it for a couple holes. And one of the things watching Scotty, and like the thing about St. Jude is that the FedEx Cup is in Memphis in August. It's like 700 degrees. So there's not a lot of people there. These are the three best golfers in the world, and it's so hot that like you have a lot of access to these guys. You get really up close. And the thing about Scheffler that's crazy is other than just the swing mechanics where it looks like he's falling over, the ball flight is really weird. It's so low, and it does this kind of weird slice, and then it just ends up in the fairway and it goes 1,000 miles an hour. So it's pretty interesting to see such a unique swing up close. I like John Rahm and Rory are so beautiful with their swing that it looked like, what I see on TV, and what you see is like, oh, this is like a beautiful swing. And then there's Scotty, and So it's really pretty interesting. But let's get into the Masters here a little bit because we're talking about Scotty Scheffler. He's one of the he's won the Masters before, always a favorite. But, we also have Rory in the field. He's playing well this week, and everybody wants him to complete this Grand Slam. And this is going to be, a big year for the Masters with all the live guys coming back. You never know what they're going to do. They seem to think they're going to do terrific, but I never really know because I don't know. I don't watch live golf, and they play like once a year. So I never know how warmed up they are. But, Jay, we'll just we'll start with you. We'll go to Nate. We've got about 5 minutes here. Just some people you really are going to be paying attention to next week at Augusta.
So from a betting perspective, guys, Augusta is interesting. It's usually the easiest one to pick. 80% of the time, the winner comes from the top 16 players in the world. The challenge now is who the hell's in the top 16 in the world, because the world golf rankings are so upside down because of live. But there are a couple guys that I'm just going to throw this out there to start. Bryson DeChambeau will win the Masters before his career is over. He's in one of the most elite categories, guys, of people that have won the U.S. Open, the U.S. Amateur, and the NCAA tournament. Jack, Tiger, and Bryson. So I think he's got. I don't know. It's like you said, Jack. I don't know what kind of form their games are in because they play once every 6, 7, 8 weeks. So he's somebody to look for. Joaquin Niemann is the best player in the world right now, not named Scotty Scheffler. Okay, I'm looking forward to him. But then Rahm coming back defending is going to be fun. Scheffler, if he putts it all, is going to be right there. I mean, and everybody's kind of sentimental for Rory, but I don't see it happening for Rory.
So, Jay, who should I bet?
I would check out Joaquin Niemann. I would check out. It all depends on John. It all depends on what the odds are, right? But picking a golf tournament is. I mean, I'm in the weeds in this, and I pick a winner like 4 times in my whole life. It's so darn hard. But I would look. Scheffler's going to be there at the end of the day. I think Rahm's going to be there at the end of the day. And those guys are going to be heavy favorites. So I don't know what the money line looks like.
Yeah. So Neiman's 25-1, which is, that's pretty nice for the Masters for the top guys, the favorites. And then Bryson is 35-1, and those are pretty good odds, but golf is tough. It's just, when
Scheffler, Jack, what is Scheffler?
Oh, I'm sure he's, up there. He's 4-1. He's the best golfer in the world. So 4-1 odds there. Usually Nate and I wouldn't recommend taking anyone that's not 15-1 or more, really 20-1, because you just statistically you don't get a lot of bang for your buck if you're taking 11-1 Rory or 4-1 Scotty, because they're playing against 200, 300 people, and it's just if you just did a probability equation, the probability that Scotty wins is not enough to take that 4-1 play. But if you want to play it, you certainly can.
Another guy to look for. Sorry to interrupt. Is Auberg. This kid's a stud. Now, you don't win very often in your first time around Augusta, but I think 2 people have Fuzzy and someone else. But this kid is a really, really good player.
Who's that?
Big Auberg.
Auberg. Oh my God, yeah. He hasn't been playing as well this season, but yeah, I mean, he's just incredible. And he's a gamer. Like, he's the kind of guy who he's like Brooks Koepka. Like, Brooks is an anomaly, I think, a little bit, but he's the kind of guy where when the lights are the brightest and it's the most difficult course, he's going to be up there because he's just so good. Nate,
Koepka's an interesting guy too, Jack. Sorry, I'm talking all
go ahead.
But Koepka's an interesting guy too because he's just got this swagger, and if it wasn't for the weather last year, guys, he probably wins Augusta. He had a 3-stroke lead, but had to play 35 holes on the weekend because the weather was so lousy. And that's when Rahm caught him, and then he turned around and won the very next major at Oak Hill.
Jay, did you ever play in the Masters?
It's the only one I never played in. I got invited to play there, and I turned it down, guys, because I wanted my first drive to be down Magnolia Lane and as a participant, and I didn't do it. Yeah.
No, when I asked that question, because I'd done a little research on you this week, and I know you've played in all the other ones, and I was like, I don't think he's played in the Masters. But, Nate, a couple minutes here just to give us a couple you like, and then we'll move on to some baseball.
Yeah, so I'll stick. I'll go deep into the weeds this week on sort of long shots that I like or whatever. But just sort of towards the top of the odds board guys that I like. I mean, I can't avert my eyes from Koepka at 18-1. Finished second twice at Augusta. We know he's a big game hunter. Form is irrelevant. He's playing this week to tune up in Miami. On Live, it's not Live sort of deliberately sets their schedule so these guys can sort of acclimate to the time zone, a little bit easier than the PGA Tour does. So, it's going to be no problem for him to just pop right up to Augusta, right after the tournament and get going. So that's sort of what I like, the best, just in terms of guys towards the top. I mean, I can't justify betting Scheffler or Rory, but Brooks at 18-1 feels very reasonable. Sort of drifting down a little bit. The thing about Augusta is, and people don't realize this, and it's probably worth mentioning, and maybe Jay has an opinion on it, is bad putters play really well at Augusta because the greens are so difficult that nobody really putts very well on them. So you have a lot of guys like Bernhard Langer, Vijay Singh, guys who have been career bad putters, have pretty good records at Augusta National. So guys that I'm looking at are guys like Zalatoris, who's a really good ball striker, whose putting gets masked at a place like Augusta National a little bit. It's easier for him to sort of recover. So things like that, guys that are really strong ball strikers that maybe haven't been putting as well, are always sort of things that I look at for Augusta. Always sort of trend towards ball striking and sort of iron play versus short game wizards and putters. Those guys have won. Obviously, Ben Crenshaw won there, basically on the strength of his putter alone. But it's much less. It's much less often than guys who are bad putters just sort of find it. Scotty Scheffler, obviously at Augusta as well. So it happens all the time there. So if there was a tournament, is what I'm saying, where Scotty Scheffler could just go and win by 150, the Masters is probably
the Masters, where he's won before, and I mean, he looks primed to do it again. 4-1 is too. It's the odds stink, so it's not for me. But as a golf fan, I mean, look, I love when Scotty's great. I never thought we'd get someone like this, and I wonder sometimes if he ran some of those guys off to Live. I know the money is there, but I mean, I think some of these guys looked around and were like, man, Scotty Scheffler, if he plays up to his potential, he could never lose a tournament and just end up like Tiger. Let me just take the money now. So kind of interesting. Well, listen, Jay, I was excited for you to come on the show, talk about golf. This was a lot of fun. We don't get to do a ton of golf on the show for various reasons, but we're definitely going to be talking golf next week in the Masters. So if you're available, we'd love to have you back. And other than that, we'll have some segments as well going forward. We got a lot of the majors coming up, and we love talking golf. Me and Nate are golf nuts, so we love doing it. But Jay, thank you so much for coming on, and just tell our listeners one more time where they can find you on Twitter or find your show, and then we'll move on to some.
Well, first of all, Jack and John and Nate, thanks so much for having me. It's fun. The show is great. I love sitting around talking, sports and golf especially. At Jay Delsing, Twitter, and jdelsinggolf.com. You can reach out to me, and I get a lot of emails from tips and things like that. So if you send me anything, I'll respond to you. But I really appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, Jay. We'll see you next week if you're available.
Right on. Take care, guys.
All right, we're going to move a little bit to some baseball now, Dad. Talk about the Oakland A's. We know we love them. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about Rosie's, Dad. Rosie's Gaming Casino. I know you're in Kansas, but I know as soon as you get touched down back in Virginia, you'll be at Rosie's.
Well, I tell you what, I love Rosie's. I'm going to Virginia next week to cover one of their Republican Party events there called The Advance. I get there on Thursday night. First thing I'm doing is I'm going to Rosie's in Hampton because it's in the Norfolk area. But you can go to Rosie's anywhere. They're all over the state. They got a new hotel going up in Dumfries, Northern Virginia, Vinton by Roanoke. They got one right by our studio in Richmond. So you got Rosie's there, Colonial Downs, which I'll be there the whole summer. Thing is about Rosie's is it's just a great atmosphere. You're going to have the best time there because, look, win and have fun. That's basically their thing. And the thing about Rosie's is, I keep saying this, you got to go if you're in Virginia and you like to have a little fun. It is a great place to go. It's a great date night. Take your wife, take your significant other, have fun there. It's clean, it's bright. It's not like a casino where you go and it's dark and there's smoke. None of that goes on there. It's a little bit of a different atmosphere, very uplifting, but they got the biggest jackpots and the biggest payouts. Why? Because they have the lowest government takeout of any casino in America. Why? Because that's how the General Assembly gave them the license there in Virginia. It's a very unique situation. So you're going to get the biggest jackpots, you're going to get the biggest payouts. It's so much fun. Plus, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to gamble downstairs, you go upstairs, and then there's you can bet all the basketball games, you can bet baseball. It's all there. The horses, OTB, rosiesgaming.com. Best experience you're going to have. It's fun. Food's great, drinks are great, everything is fabulous. It's clean, secure. I mean, you can eat off the floor there. Their stickler for everything is immaculate. You're going to have so much fun. rosiesgaming.com. That's rosiesgaming.com. Shout out to Nate Mize, who's their VP of marketing, who has had a vision to create a different type of a casino in Virginia. Very different, right? No smoke, they don't pump oxygen in. There's windows. The sun comes in. It's very different than you're going to see in any of these other casinos. It's a fun experience. rosiesgaming.com.
Having worked in the service industry a long time, Nate as well, I've definitely seen people eat off the floor before. I don't know if I recommend it, but certainly seen some people after maybe one too many drinks spill something on the floor and just pick it right back up, pop it.
Pick that French fry up.
Yeah,
you got the 3-second rule.
I don't know. Some of the places I worked at, I don't know if I'd want a 3-second rule. I don't even think I'd want to eat on the table at some of those restaurants, let alone the floor. But here we are.
You'd think cigarettes had like some sort of inherent immunity against disease. How many I've seen picked up off a casino floor and thrown into somebody's mouth.
Yeah, that's just that.
Oh, God.
That move is a bold one. Let's talk Oakland A's moving to Sacramento. That's exciting for the fan base. Let's start with Dan here because Dan. I mean, you follow baseball. You're a journalist. You're doing this a long time. Then we'll go to Dad. I know he'll have some colorful takes on this. I don't know. I mean, this looks like this has got to suck. I guess is my setup here, but maybe I'm wrong, Dan. I don't know. Oakland moving to Sacramento for the next couple of years after this year to play baseball until Vegas is complete.
This is an embarrassment for everyone all the way around. I mean, I feel so bad for the few people in Oakland who are still supporting this team through thin, thinner, and threadbare because there has been no thick. I mean, the Moneyball years were at least somewhat fun, but I mean, Oakland has basically been run like Dollar Tree for the last quarter century, and they've gone about this in such a poor way. I mean, John Fisher and Dave Cavallo could basically write a book on how not to galvanize your fan base in your favor. And this brings to mind the plight of the Arizona Coyotes in the NHL. I mean, the A's are going to be playing in a substandard facility. I mean, I'm sure that Sacramento is a great facility for the River Cats, but it's not an MLB facility. And it's not going to be an MLB facility no matter how many improvements they make to it. Like, it's going to be similar to when the Blue Jays were playing in Buffalo, but that didn't matter as much because the Blue Jays were in Buffalo because of COVID restrictions. The A's are in Sacramento because of incompetence. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure the A's actually make it to Las Vegas. Like, I mean, that stadium still hasn't broken ground. No contracts have been signed. And Vegas is waking up to the idea that, do we really want to get into this partnership with John Fisher and this organization, or should we just sit back and let Major League Baseball decide to expand and get somebody who's not tainted by all this foolishness? So I don't know. I mean, Sacramento could quote unquote luck its way into a baseball team, but I'm kind of reminded of the quote from Kansas City in the 1960s when the A's left there for Oakland, calling Oakland the luckiest city since Hiroshima.
Oh my God, Dad! I mean, you got to be just sick over this, right?
It's a clown show. I mean, first of all, as far as the A's are concerned, I'm betting the Tigers today, and I'm going to lay 170. Anytime I can bet against Oakland and I'm getting under 200, I jump on it. I don't care who's pitching. So I'm going to bet the Tigers today minus 170. I'll start there. Let's just they're playing in a minor league stadium. They're a minor league team. So that fits, right? I guess that's kind of the good news, right? It kind of fits where they're playing. But I put all this on Rob Manfred. This is the worst commissioner in the history of baseball. This guy makes Bowie Kuhn look like Judge Mountain Landis. He is so bad. And what really Major League Baseball needs to do is do to Oakland what they did to Montreal, right? When that franchise was just falling apart, they just took over the team, and then they found a home for it and ended up in Washington. Years later, they win a championship, beat the Astros. So I just got to tell you this thing, John Fisher, the MLB has set up an enclave economic financial situation where you make money by losing, and you just do the economics math. The guy gets a share from all the other teams. He keeps his payroll bare. They don't do anything. They make no investments. The problem is he owns 50% of the Coliseum now. He doesn't want to sell the share in that. He's not getting enough money. The guy's totally, it's all about business greed. And where do you have a model? This is like the communist model of baseball. Let's get a model where you don't win, where you lose. And the more you lose, the more money you make. This, I tell you what, who the other people that fit this model, Republican political consultants. They lose races and make more money. I mean, it's an insane model that they got going on. And now we got a major league team playing in a minor league ballpark for 3 years because nobody wants them. There's no home. It's almost like, ship without a harbor, what the old saying is. I feel bad for the players on the A, the fans on the A's. I mean, what another slap in the face. Now you got to go drive to a minor league baseball park in Minnesota. I mean, I'm here in Kansas City. Where am I? Lawrence, Kansas. I mean, this stadium here, this is like a converted cement truck from 1970 that they put in a field and turned it into a baseball stadium. That's basically what you're going to get in Kansas City. And so, I mean, Manfred let this happen. He let it happen. First commissioner ever. So I don't know what they're going to do about it, but it's a disaster.
Your argument is that Manfred is a bad commissioner because of the inaction taken here, just the fact that he let this happen, or did he?
Yeah, he allowed.
There's some sort of policy that he put in place that allowed this.
Policies and then allowing it to happen. I mean, you're supposed to be the commissioner of baseball. Stop worrying, hat Manfred, about taking 2 seconds off a pitch clock. Stop being concerned about that, you moron, and go figure out what the hell's going on in Oakland here. Right, get in the middle of those deals. You've got an army.
Don, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and say that Manfred is in a tough position on that front because he does work at the pleasure of the 30 owners, and each owner wants to be able to extract whatever they can to get their own stadiums filled out, get whatever tax dollars they can get from their local government. And if Manfred does the right thing, steps in, tells John Fisher, no, you've acted like a complete moron. You need to sell this team and let somebody else try to fix this market that you have poisoned. He's going to get fired. I mean, the owners have already shown they'll fire a commissioner back in the 90s when they fired Faye Vincent. So there's only so much Manfred can do. I agree with you that something should have been done a long time ago. I'm just not sure what really could have been done there from Manfred's situation.
Well, wait a minute. When the Dodgers went
before you get to that point, how jinxed is this franchise given the owners that they've had over their 100 plus years? I mean, they've had John Fisher, Charlie Finley, and senile Connie Mack. What did this franchise do when they were created back over 100 years ago?
Yes, you brought up Finley. I can't even remember. He wanted to have an orange baseball. Then he had a fire sale. And I think it was Bowie Kuhn was the commissioner. He stopped it. He wanted to sell all his players but look, remember when the Dodgers imploded and there was a couple that had that fight? I don't remember the names. I just remember they had a big fight. Right. And then they couldn't make there was a month they couldn't make payroll. MLB had to step in and fund their payroll. Well, what did they do? They got new owners. They got the team sold. And now the Dodgers are back to being, the Dodgers spending bajillions of dollars. So, the commissioner stepped in there. They stepped into Montreal, right? I mean, look at how they saved the Expos franchise.
But they stepped in because the owners were willing to support that. They're willing to support saving a team from a personal squabble, like what happened with the Dodgers. They're willing to save a team that's facing contraction. They're not willing to save a team from extracting a new stadium from its market when they're trying to get tax dollars elsewhere.
And I mean, the messiest like fights that happen, or the messiest when sports organizations are at their messiest is when they're trying to find a new home and they're trying to get a stadium built, and they just make decisions that sacrifice the short time frame, sacrifice the immediate for the future. And I'm sure if we talk to the A's organization, they would say, "Hey, listen, this is an unfortunate situation, and we're trying to figure it out. And while we do that, we have to play in Sacramento." Now, the organization just in general is just like not run well. I mean, they could have got this figured out. And Jeff Passan does a lot of writing and a lot of tweeting about just how criminal this has been, just as like an organizational standpoint of like, if you're going to move, do it better than this. So 3 years at a minor league stadium in Sacramento is just not great. But shout out to Sacramento. I mean, they got a lot of good sports fans out there. So it's really the stadium, not necessarily the city. I mean, you could, like Dan says, you could probably stay in Sacramento and be all right. It's a huge city, and a lot of love for the A's up there. Nate, we'll get your thoughts on this, then we'll move on to some other reactions of baseball here to do some picks. But you're out there in Reno, and that's an area where you see a lot of A's fans. And I mean, if it wasn't Sacramento, it may have been Reno that had that would have housed that team. Which
there was talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, they have a good stadium out there as well.
Yeah, no, there was talk about that. I guess a lot of my perspective has been colored by one of me and Jack's really good friends who played pretty high level baseball, played in college, played some professional ball, and is just the total baseball nut. Sorry, and he went to opening day in Oakland for like the fan walkout. Basically, like the whole thing with A's fans, I guess, was they were all just going to go basically tailgate in the parking lot and not buy tickets and actually go to the game. So the stands are pretty empty for that opening day. And I was asking him like what it was like, were people angry or people, sad or whatever. And he said that the overwhelming mood was just apathy. Like they're so done already. Like the team's already gone in their mind. Like people just didn't really want to go to the game anyways. It wasn't like they were protesting anything. They were just like, forget it. And then they get, lose 8-0 on opening day. But he said that they were mostly just like basically checked out already. And I think that's where Oakland's really going to struggle is from the perspective of like, they don't have a fan base anymore. They've alienated everyone. I had a buddy in college when I was an undergrad who was, diehard sort of closest to Reno sports fan, Kings, Oakland A's, and the Raiders when they were in Oakland as well back then. And he, has remained loyal to two of those teams, and he just gave up on the A's. And he was diehard, jerseys, hats, went to, probably a dozen games a year from Reno, and he just gave up. He was just like, I'm opening the books. Like I can't do it anymore. I can't have a franchise that just deliberately tries to lose. It's not why I'm a sports fan. And I think that more people are coming to that. And I think that's the real concern for Oakland. Like, sure, it's going to suck playing in Sacramento. Yes, there are some things that they do that, maybe make it easier for them or sort of at least don't incentivize them enough to win. But so much of it is just like, I feel bad for the fans. I mean, people watch sports to find some sort of joy or find some sort of outlet.
Yes.
And they find nothing right now in Oakland.
Yes.
There is no joy. There is no outlet. You're just watching a team go out there and lose. There is no drama to it at all.
I mean, Dad, your brand is like the super fan. I mean, that's what people know you as. And for most Houston, Tennessee, whatever. I mean, Houston engaged in a giant project to basically tank forever and then build up the farm system and win. Atlanta did the same thing. A lot of teams have done that. Of course, Oakland, Baltimore. Of course, Oakland did it first. There's a little bit of buy-in, but I think the difference between Atlanta, Houston, maybe Oakland, when they first invented this sort of money ball, Baltimore, was that like there's a level of trust in the organization that like you're doing this for like winning later. Like there is some trust there, right? Maybe like the 76ers are a good example of maybe like a little too, like we gave them a little bit too long of a leash. But I've heard, like, I used to listen to Brian, I still listen to Ryan Russillo a lot, his podcast. And one of the arguments he used to make about this stuff was like, this is owners trying to get away with losing, like just to be like, oh, well, we're going to win in the future. Like, it's like a pass go sort of pass, right? Like collect $200 and pass go. You just tell the fans we're winning later, be patient. And it's like, fans don't want that. Like, we want to be a fan so that every year you're trying to win, you have a chance. That's what's exciting. But at least with Atlanta or Houston, some of these other baseball teams, you trusted that the organization, which had won before, was going to try to win in the future. They were just taking a different route. With Oakland, I mean, nobody believes that they're trying to win in 5-10 years.
Right.
They just don't care, it seems like.
Right.
And that is so annoying. It's so just annoying to watch.
Well, they're so blatant about it. I mean, you go out and hire Dave Cavall as your team president after his tenure with the San Jose Earthquakes. The only thing he accomplished was getting a new stadium built. The Earthquakes made the playoffs 1 year in his entire time with San Jose, and MLS is a league where it is darn hard to miss the playoffs.
I mean, Dad, as an A's fan, like, you'd have to be pissed, right?
Well, I mean, look, when we went through as Astros fans, I went through some really tough, you did. So I went through before you were born. So, the late 70s where we lost 100 games. And then you go through this situation here now where with 3 years in a row, we lost over 100 games. 1 year, I think we lost 110. I mean, it's painful, but you always knew there was a plan because you saw the young players coming up in the organization. You saw the draft picks they were making. So you had hope. There was a plan. The same thing with the Orioles, same thing with Atlanta. So, you just take it on the chin for a couple seasons, and then, maybe you got something. But that's not the A's plan. The A's plan is to continue to lose. They get the revenue share from the other teams. And so if they keep their payroll under a certain amount, their costs under a certain amount, they're guaranteed to make money. I mean, this is why it's a perverse system, which we have put in place, and it's up to MLB to change that, or to get owners that want to buy in and care about their city and care about their team. Look, I don't like everything about Jim Crane, but I know one thing: he wants to win. Now, if you go to the Pirates, okay, the problem with the Pirates are, and they're off to a good start this season. Yay! I live in Pittsburgh. Is I've always said, how do you be a Pirates fan? Because you get a good player, they don't want to pay them, and they go away in free agency, or you trade them away, and then it's a cycle that just goes on in perpetuity. I mean, at some point, now finally they signed their big pitcher. At some point, the owner has to make an investment in the fans in the city. You got to do it. That's why I'm for Crane, signing Bregman. You got to sign these people. You got to sign Tucker. This is for the fan base. We've given you all this money, all the support. We buy all your bling. Okay, you got to give back here. You got to keep the fans engaged.
It's why I love Shad Khan in Jacksonville, the Jaguars owner, because when he bought that team was a mess, and they were they were worried that he was going to move the team. Jacksonville doesn't deserve a football team, blah blah blah. And he came in and he made connection with the city immediately and was like, I'm not moving this team and I'm going to try to win. And, they went to the AFC Championship when they had Tom Coughlin as their president a couple, maybe now 6 or 7 years ago. And I mean, at times Jacksonville sucks, but every year it seems like their owner is trying to win football games. And that's all you want from a fan base, is an organization that is at least trying or is at least connecting with the city. I know teams move, but what has happened to Oakland as a sports town is just ridiculous. I mean, this is one of the most rabid fan bases in Oakland, with the Raiders before they moved to Vegas, and with the A's, and of course Golden State. I mean, this is a good sports city, and it lost all of these teams. I mean, I know that a lot of it has to do with other factors, but it's just, at least with the Warriors, they try to win, and at least with the Raiders, I mean, I don't know if the Raiders are. I think the Raiders are trying to win. I don't know if they're any good at it, but you have that hope there. With the A's, you just don't have any hope that this team cares at all what you're going through.
And I think that,
And with the Warriors, I mean, the Warriors at least had the decency. Like, they moved to San Francisco and they paid for their stadium themselves. Like, I mean, they're still in the area. Like, tip your cap and keep supporting them. They didn't do anything wrong. But the A's have just been a disaster.
And a lot of this speaks to just baseball, just sort of cultural in general, is, baseball is such a developmental game, unlike, football necessarily or basketball. Like, you watch guys come up through the system. It takes a long time to really make it to the majors. It's not like the NFL draft where it's like, all right, like Caleb Williams, like, here's the ball, like second one of game one, for the Bears. That doesn't really happen in baseball. So it's like you get excited as a fan, you're watching this prospect move through single A, double A, triple A, whatever, gets his shot in the big league. And then it's like, as soon as they have some value, then Oakland gets rid of them. And so they never really get to develop like a relationship with a player. And I think that's the difference is like in Houston, when they were rebuilding, you could see these guys sort of come up and be like, all right. And then when Houston hung on to him, you're like, all right, like these are our guys now. Houston doesn't have like those guys because they jettison them so quickly when they have any sort of value.
Yeah, like if Houston had traded Altuve halfway through
Right,
losing 110 games, Houston fans would have been like, all right, what are we doing? Like, we're not trying to win. Wandy Rodriguez was like our ace for all those years when we sucked. Fine. But that is the thing with the A's, right? The minute that they get just some guy who's any good, they're just like, I'll trade him. And that's just, it's just criminal. At some point, you got to try to build around some people. And you can't blame Billy Beane, who's been trying to do this forever now. Let's move on to some picks. Before we do that, though, I got to talk a little bit about Royal Canal, one of my favorite sponsors here on the show. RC Furnaces, Royal Canal's RC Furnace. Now, look, you want to burn some fat to fill your workouts, baby. This is the capsule for you. Not only does it give you a little bit of bump with that caffeine, so pre-workout, got a lot of energy, but it's got all this folic acid in it, so it gets the oxygen pumping, gets it in the blood flow. And, losing weight is tough. Like, if you still have to eat, you can't always be in a calorie deficiency. A lot of times it's genetics. A lot of times it's stress. All of us, work really hard here. All our listeners work really hard as well. So when you're in need of just a little something extra for your workouts, whether that's rock climbing like Nate does, or sitting in the hot tub like Dad does, I'm sure that's a workout there, running or whatever, with lifting weights like I do, you want to have a little bit of RC Furnace there, a little Royal Canal. So you go to royalcanal.fit. That's royalcanal.fit. You put in the promo code Godzilla Wins, just the whole website, Godzilla Wins. And you're going to get 50% off that first bottle. It takes down to about $22. And you don't have to be a subscriber. So you're going to want to subscribe. The minute you try this, you'll run back and subscribe. But you don't have to be one to try it. So get that 50% off on RC Furnace. Grab some of those capsules and just try it for your workout. Watch that fat just melt away. All right.
Wait a minute. What's the website again? Because I do 50 push-ups a day. I gotta get this.
Yeah, there you go.
What's that?
Royalcanal.fit. Royalcanal.fit. That's the website.
And I get 50% off my first order
with the promo code Godzilla Wins. Just type it in.
Godzilla Wins. It's a good promo code.
Great promo code.
What is it? Royalcanal.fit.
Yes, royalcanal.fit.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do some MLB picks here. We got about 12 minutes. Usually I try to keep us a little bit more like on schedule, but I don't know. I was just really interested in these conversations today, so I kind of just let things go. And sometimes as the host, I feel like I cut conversations off a little bit too quickly, and I'm just like, all right, moving to the next thing because I did this run sheet. So I've been, today I was like, okay, well, let's just let things flow the way they're flowing. I mean, look, we're just talking baseball. It's only the second week, so but I know we got.
I like this format better. Like, let it flow. I like that. So you're getting out of that teacher regiment. This is like talk radio. You got to let it flow. You're good. You're getting there, man.
Well, I don't know if with you I always want to let things flow. Sometimes I do want to kind of cut it off and move on. You never really know. You're kind of a wild card there, but yeah, we'll try a little bit more organic conversation here and there. Why not? Dan, MLB best bets for the weekend. I mean, this has been kind of a interesting start to the season. I know you got a couple best bets for us. Then we'll go to Dad. He always has some, and then Nate. And everybody's already following Dad's quick picks and making fun of how he's losing. So that's fun.
I'm not losing.
Well, that's not what the comments say.
Well, that's because they're not going to dailypicks.com where I'm actually leading the pack. I got the best record. I'm way over 500. Plus, I'm up. I'm up in every sport except MLB, and I'm going to get out of that hole today And hockey, I'm on fire. I got a super hockey lock for you today, but you're just going to have to wait.
Yeah,
That's all
10-unit bomb. Go ahead, Dan.
All right, so first game I'm going with is I am taking the over in Dodgers and Cubs. It's only at 8, and these offenses have been producing so well this year. I mean, the reason that it's only at 8 is because it's Wrigley Field 2, as I believe it was Don Zimmer who labeled it as, which basically means the wind is blowing in. It's not going to be very friendly for home runs, but the Dodgers and the Cubs are both really good at manufacturing runs. They dealt with these conditions yesterday, and they put up 17 runs. So jumping on that over again in that matchup, I think that's going to work out really well. I'm going to take the Guardians against Minnesota. The Twins are not hitting the ball out of the park right now. They've only got 3 homers, and Minnesota is not a team that is built to manufacture runs. When the home runs don't come for the Twins, they are very vulnerable. And Cleveland has a set formula when they're facing Minnesota. Their past 9 matchups, in Cleveland wins, Cleveland has outscored Minnesota 19-9. In Cleveland losses, the Twins have outscored them, I believe it's 38-15. So Minnesota just bunches all their runs into bad days for Cleveland's pitching. I think Cleveland, with the wind working in their favor because it's going to be blowing in from right field, though I'm in Minnesota today, I think that works out for the Guardians. I'm going to take the Cardinals minus 1.5 against the Marlins because Miami is just a dumpster fire right now. They're 0-8, and they haven't even played a one-run game yet this season. They are 0-8 on the run line. So just ride the train with St. Louis there. And then I'm going to go with Oakland and Detroit. I'm taking over 7.5 runs. So Oakland, we know it's a dumpster fire all the way around, but the A's biggest problem is that they strike out far too often. When they make contact, they're actually not horrible. And Kenta Maeda gave up 3 home runs in his first start this season. He's not always a great strikeout pitcher. He's had 3 or fewer strikeouts 6 of his past 9 starts. So Oakland should get some pitches to hit. We know that Detroit can hit against Oakland. So over 7.5 runs, I think that looks really good. And again, the wind is going to be headed out toward the bleachers. So I'm in Detroit. So that's going to play a factor.
Yeah, a lot of good picks there. Man, I'll tell you what, Miami, they 0-8. I didn't realize they were 0-8 against the run line. Like, oh my God, like that's so hard to do in baseball.
Yeah.
That's just a dumpster fire there in Miami.
Like they're barely even in save situations.
Yeah. Oh my God. Dad, go ahead. I know you got some MLB best bets, and look, if you guys want to throw some hockey picks in there and do it as well, you can do that.
Well, no, I'll just stick with MLB right now. Just for the record, go to Godzillawins.com, GodzillaWins.com, go to Daily Picks. All my picks are there. Jack's picks are there. Right now in the MLB so far this season, I'm 19-16, down $1.50 because of some of the favorites, but I think I'm going to get out of that hole today, and I'm up 52 units for the season. So we'll see how this goes. I like a couple games today. I love the Diamondbacks here getting 200. I mean, why am I getting 2-1 with a team that just went to the World Series that's probably better than they were last season? This is an overlay on Atlanta, 100%, coupled with the fact that Max Fried got lit up in his first start. I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks plus 200. I'll take 2-1 on this team anytime. I'm going with Detroit. I'm going to lay the 170. A's are just pathetic. Go on the road. Forget about it. Unfortunately, you got to keep betting the Cardinals. I mean, I don't like the team. They're in no man's land. Are they selling? Are they buying? Who the hell knows? But the Marlins could lose 15 games in a row for all I know. So I'm just going to lay in on the Cardinals minus 145. I like the Orioles in Pittsburgh. I think the Pirates start to cool off now. So I'm going to lay the 140 there. I'm going to keep betting against Washington. I like Philadelphia minus 175. The Nationals are a complete dumpster fire. This is a last place team. Those are my picks for today. Hockey, very interesting, but you'll find out my hockey lock today. Just go to Johnny's Quick Picks. That'll be up about 12 o'clock today. Johnny's Quick Picks. Don't want to miss that.
You're not going to give it out on the radio?
No, you got to go to the column, GodzillaWins.com. It's my lock.
I'm telling you, when you retire, you just You just got to move to Vegas and just be a tout. You got all the makings of just blowing people up on a mass text, being like, "Listen, today
coming.
is a new day, and all I do is win on Saturdays when the weather is 75 degrees or more. But I can't give you out picks right now. What I need you to do is just click on this weird link you've never seen before, and it'll take you right to my 100-unit NHL bomb, absolute lock. Check it out."
I got a hockey lock coming for you. Mom's out in Las Vegas this week, looking at a couple radio stations out there that we're looking at. So Vegas is going to be the center of the universe, with or without the A's.
So yeah, with or without the A's. So I guess a couple picks. I don't know. I mean, the one game I'm staring at a lot is the night game, the nightcap, Red Sox Angels. I don't know why the Red Sox are 6-2. I haven't really followed Boston much, but I'm just looking at that. I picked against Reed Detmers for the Angels last week. I was like, oh, Reed Detmers sucks. Like, that was basically my analysis. Like, my whole analysis was Reed Detmers is trash. Angels are going to lose. And then he went out and like shoved. His ERA is 180. Garrett Whitlock 1-0 as well, starting for the Red Sox. Both of those have. Whitlock's got 8 strikeouts. Detmers 7 for their first start. So if I'm just looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I like the under here in the nightcap of Red Sox Angels. 8.5 is the run total. So I guess I kind of like that game. I'm interested to see what the Red Sox. I just haven't been paying attention to them because I assumed that they were going to suck this year. I'll take the Rangers -1.5 runs. Why not? The Astros looked pitiful. I mean, they look bad. They won 2 games where they blew out Toronto earlier in the week. They got swept by New York, and now they're playing Texas, and Texas looks just about where they were looking earlier or when they won the World Series. I mean, they come out and they just, I don't know, like the Rangers are so tired of getting beat by the Astros, I think, that they really take it to them every time that they play them. The Astros pitching really has some problems, both relief pitching and starting pitching. And Adelis just destroys the Astros. I mean, he hit like a 3-run bomb last night. I am a little skeptical of his rapid muscle gain, I think. I work out a lot, and that's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. He looks pretty big. He must be taking RC Furnace. I mean, that must be what it is. All natural veggie capsules. RoyalCanal.fit. Get your little RC Furnace there. He's really chopped his weight in half there. But man, muscle wise, I mean, I want to know his workout routine because wow, he looks big. Not to say that he would do anything to jeopardize his career. Of course not. I mean, these guys are professionals. But I just want to know what he's doing. I mean, I lift weights a lot, and I really want to know what Adelis is doing there because he looks huge. But he hit a 3-run bomb last night, and the Astros suck. So I'm just going to take the Rangers -1.5. Again, this is just the way I look at this is if I think you suck, then I'm taking the other team. So that's where I'm at. The only other game I think, I'm gonna go with the Cardinals, right? Like I think we all love that. I mean,
I think I'm the lone dissenter. I think I kind of like the Marlins.
Oh, now oh yeah, okay. Well, tell us why then, Nate. You got a minute.
Okay, I got a minute, and I was gonna give the floor to you guys because you guys are the baseball guys, but I did look at the Marlins game as we've been sort of talking about it, and I don't know. I mean, so the problem with the Marlins is they lose all the time, but Rodgers had a bad first start. Sure, there were some control issues, but over the course of his career, he's usually been a lot better than he was in his first start. So I don't want to get too low on Rodgers' starter. We know the Cardinals sort of struggled against left-handed pitching last season. It's fair to think they could struggle again. On the other side of it, Marlins can probably throw 7 right-handed bats at Matz, which could be problematic for him. He struggled against right-handed hitting anyways. And then, his stuff is declining. So I don't think this is like a horrible spot for, to take a small underdog with the Marlins. I mean, I don't hate it. If you want to take them first 5, just to get through the starters and then not have to deal with some volatile bullpens, I think that's also fine. But yeah, I like the Marlins.
Boy, there's a confident bet I don't hate them. I don't hate it. With that,
Well, I mean, it's as much as you can do with
I
any
don't
under.
hate this bet.
Yeah, I looked, and we only got 30 seconds, so I can't look it up. But the Marlins are like last in every hitting category, so I don't know right-hander or left-hander.
They also lead the majors in walks.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Well,
hate this.
By their pitchers. By their pitchers.
their pitchers walk. I was like, oh, okay. Well, at least they're drawing walks. No,
not a good thing.
Look,
Jack, you're picking against your favorite team today. Bad juju. I keep telling you guys, don't do it. It's bad for your health. Bad for
the
your
only
mental
thing
state.
that's bad for my health. The only thing that's bad for my health right now is listening to or is watching Astros baseball. Like that's the only thing that's bad for my health. So I'm just going to take the Rangers because the Astros suck. You've been listening to the Godzilla Win Saturday Pick Show. We're at time, so we have to go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Up next, you're in the War Room. See you next week.